Since the upcoming changes to the SEC scheduling will increase the difficulty of the regular season, how do you think this affects the 12-team playoff and the championship? From Millen, Georgia. It's a great unknown to me, Darren. That's what I've wondered about. It's what I've speculated about aloud on the show. I am a huge proponent of beefing up the schedule. That in and of itself is never a bad thing because it is ultimately an entertainment business. I'm not trying to sound intellectually superior to the room when I say that. We all know that. That's not news to anyone. So, yeah, entertainment brings us to the table. You'd a whole lot rather see more Florida versus Tennessee than Florida versus Middle Tennessee, Miami notwithstanding last year. And so, what do? Well, we add a conference game, right? And you add a couple of teams to your conference, you increase the 9 conference games. But what Darren's asking is not how will it affect the conference schedule. Darren's saying, how's this going to impact the playoff? Because you see, everyone thinks when you go to 12 games, all of a sudden the SEC is going to load that thing up. And it could be true. It's the best conference in the country right now. It's usually the deepest conference in the country. It's always a year-by-year thing, but on average, you know what I'm saying is true. So reason would indicate, yeah, they're going to load that thing up. What are we going to have? 2.5 or 3.5 SEC teams on average? Could there be years where there are 4 and even 5? And I say if the criteria is right, if the critical factors are right, in other words, if the selection committee is given proper protocols, then yes, the SEC would load that thing up, which is why, Darren, I am highly suspicious that that will be the case. I'm not going conspiracy theory on here for you. What I am saying is I'm all for you beefing up your schedule, but why haven't teams done it already, Darren? You and I look at present backwards. Look in the rearview mirror. What's the biggest complaint in the sport? A lot of cream puffs. You've got an entire cupcake week in the SEC in November. No one, including me, likes that. Most of the coaches in the SEC don't like it. So you would ask, well, if they don't like it, why do they do it? Well, they've done it to make sure they don't egregiously overload their schedule and hurt themselves when it comes to postseason selection. Pretty straightforward. You schedule too many tough games, you up your percentage chances of losing, and you knock yourself out of the playoff. Now we expand the playoff, so that's supposed to be a moot point, right? Well, it's a moot point if you understand strength of schedule. This is where I'm telling you it's a great unknown, because I don't know until I see it. I don't know whether that committee is going to properly know how to interpret strength of schedule. See, right now, the reason I talk about the big lies in college football on our show so much is because one of the big lies is, at this point, most of you can recite it. You are what your record says you are. It's a lie. It's not true. In college athletics, that's not true. In college football, that's not true. I can go 12-0 against a bunch of teams ranked in the 100s. You could go 9-3 against a bunch of teams ranked in the top 40, and you probably had a better year than me. But 9-3 versus 12-0. How could we put a 9-3 above a 12-0? You get that whole thing. You've heard that before. I hope you haven't participated in it, but maybe you've heard that before. So we moved to the 12-team model. LSU on average, Arkansas on average will have a much tougher schedule now than they will have in the past. Because don't forget, Darren, not just are they adding a 9th conference game, they're also adding big-time out-of-conference matchups. So it's not like the SEC is loading up another conference game and saying, okay, let's schedule another Catawba Community College along with Roast Beef Tech. That's not the way that's working. So you're going to have really, really tough 10 or 11 game seasons where you're playing quality, let's call it top 50 competition, and many of those games will be against top 10 teams. How do we interpret 9-3 when we get to the end of one of those? Is there the ability on that conference committee, or not conference committee, on that playoff committee to look at a 9-3 in one league and an 11-1 in the other league and understand that 9-3 could be better? Because that, even though there's entirely logic-based premise behind it, is tough for some people to swallow. That is tough. That is a tough bridge for some people to cross because they're so married to the record. You are what your record says you are. It's not that easy. You guys wanted computers removed from this thing for that very reason. So, I don't know, Darren. My logic tells me it should increase the SEC's chances. My gut tells me let's wait and see on that. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.